I'm Sharmini Perez in Denver, Colorado, covering the DNC, and welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Major Carter, the environmental activist. Major, what are some of the struggles right now in terms of programs that you're trying to drive? I know legislation is very much a part of it, but you're a believer in terms of building community and the incentives, providing the incentives necessary to build those communities. So what are some of the programs that are solutions?
Yes. I'm an ever practical girl. So I started Sustainable South Bronx with the goal of it being a project-based organization. That's what we did. So at the end of the day, the week of the month, people need to see something different. They need to feel something different or even smell something different. And so some of the things we've worked on, I spearheaded the development of the first waterfront park my neighborhood's had in more than 60 years. Got $1.25 million worth of federal transportation dollars to begin the planning for the South Bronx Greenway, and then got, which is a dedicated on-street and also waterfront esplanade bike path that will also bring about $20 million worth of investment, to start first phase projects. But my greatest achievement was starting BEST, which stands for Bronx Environmental Stewardship Training, and it's an ecological restoration job training program that trains people in the skills of urban forestry, green roof installation, brownfield remediation or cleaning up contaminated land so they can be actively reused for something else, wetland restoration, so that those skills in ecological restoration, in addition to the soft skills, because we're working with populations that many of them are formerly incarcerated, many of them, have been or underemployed for a very long time. So we have to, give people job readiness skills as well. And so we've got an 85% success rate in training people in our 10-week program and then getting them, those certifications and everything else they need to be gainfully employed. 85%, in this country, when most job training programs, if they get 50%, they're really happy. And I think that, especially with the populations that we're working with, that if we've showed that if you give people both a personal and a financial stake in developing their world, which includes themselves, but also the environment, then you have created a believer out of them. And I'm just, what we need to do is see leadership on a national level making that happen, because, we're in the middle of a climate crisis. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. So we have got to learn how we're going to adapt, because the first people that are going to get the short end of the stick are going to be the poor. Period. That's going to happen all over the world, and we're definitely going to see it here. It's like I love hearing people talk about what's going to happen, in the islands, in Micronesia and all that stuff. And of course that's going to happen. But you know what? The first environmental refugees were in New Orleans. Okay, we've seen other ones in Cancer Alley, in Louisiana and Mississippi. We see them in the inner city, in terms of the respiratory problems that we're seeing in poor communities, because they are located right next door, sometimes literally, to the point sources for greenhouse gas emissions that have an effect on them locally, but obviously also the greenhouse gases move. And so we have to recognize that if we're not working, to help the people, especially whether we're building investments for new green businesses and manufacturing and industries in those areas first, cleaning up the ones that are there, making them green, training people who have been most marginalized by every major economic boom that we've had in decades. When the dot-com boom went bust, in this country, poor people of any color didn't even know that it happened in the first place. Our gross domestic product, product doesn't know the difference between prison, a construction or school construction. And so to them, it means absolutely nothing. However, we, as a people, and I think it's our moral as well as our social as well as our economic obligation to recognize that we cannot continue to marginalize communities the way that we've been doing so beautifully and so well all these decades, because the crisis is so complete. But the solutions are also that incredible, and they involve helps people see that they are part of the solution and not just the problem that needs to be solved.
Right. Major, tell me why you feel that often going the legislation route is a roadblock.
I think, well, first of all, I do think that we need good legislation. Policies can help create great practices. So if we, for example, in New York City, we worked really hard to make sure that we got a $4.50 tax abatement for green roof installations, so to make the cost of installing, a planted roof on top of your home, make it more reasonable. And because there's many stormwater management goals, there are energy conservation goals, there are, let's see, it cleans the air because it's a green layer, and let's see what else. There's some other wonderful, beautiful things associated with it. Your roof lasts 5 times longer at the very least, and you want those things, but it was prohibitively expensive. So the fact that we worked on that legislation was an incredibly important thing, because we know it's also going to build that market to do more green roof installations, to create more green jobs, because you got to install them. You're not going to send your roof to China to get a green roof put on it, and so stuff like that. We're really excited to seeing that. So you have to have it, but it can't be the only thing that you're looking at. Like right now, we're looking at different models that will allow us to create investment opportunities in our community. Yes, it would be easier and better if we actually had administrations, and I'm not just talking about the federal, I'm talking state and local as well, that supported the kind of innovation that we're seeing, the same way that they will support alleged innovation in the oil and coal industry. It's like, why are we, we've got an industry that puts like 2% of its, subsidies or whatever back into R&D, and that's just retarded, if you ask me. However, we're still paying for it as a country. So the fact that we're seeing innovation and we're looking at pockets of it happening right around now, that's incredibly important to see. But that's like partnerships between business community, grassroots community groups, and enlightened leaders, in our government as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you, and thank you for all the hard work you're doing for all of us.
Thank you very much.